Now, even if the quills is the first syndicate you encounter which can aid you in creating your amp, I do not recommend that you start here. It's a little bit of design creep, but the problem here is that you need an amp in order to kill the Eidolon. You need to kill the Eidolon in order to get sentient cores at any respectable rates. You need sentient cores in order to level up the quills, which you need to do in the first place to be able to buy your amp, and so on. It's an evil circle, and that's why I don't recommend that you do this. Also, the parts that you will need for a very specific amp that's used at the high level of play, you do need some parts from this. However, for the best amp for solo play, in my opinion, that can be gotten entirely from Venus, from Fortuna. Let's go ahead and take a look at those parts. If you have been holding off on that, please consider subscribing. Let's see if we can hit 20 likes. Also, the people over on the Discord is doing a fantastic job. This was a video request made over there, so if there's something you would like me to cover, please go over and suggest it. I don't take offense, and I do cover most of the topics suggested to me. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on with the video itself. We are here with the little dog on Fortuna, which can be found in the back room, by the way. He also sells you amp parts, the last 3 in fact. Each, as you can see, it's made up of a prism, a scaffold and a brace, and there's 7 of each part. The last 3 can be gotten from Fortuna, and the first 4 is gotten from Unco on Cetus, from the quills. Now, the part about this which is important is the prism and the brace. The brace is important because it gives you critical chance, and that's the only thing that's useful at all on amps, because they're pretty much only used for eidolon hunting and then some very few and specific moments in the story. Now, the only part that's interchangeable here is the scaffold. We're only going to use the scaffold when leveling the amp, and I do like this one because, well, first up, it's from Fortuna, so it's easier to get your hands on without, you know, a lot of setup. Still, it's going to be a bit of work, but, you know. And then it also have explosive damage, so it has good clear, and it's pretty cheap. It's the cheapest of the 3 in my opinion, but you know, your mileage might vary on that. So basically what you have to do in order to farm this is that you have to go out on Fortuna, and then you have to farm toroids. If you don't know what that is, probably look it up. It's a bit outside of this video. Now, this one is really good because it has a lot of burst damage. It doesn't work well with the meta setup because you can't really stack up your Mandori, which is, you know, that's a lot of high meta and stuff, but basically you take turns building up damage and then bursting the Eidolon down when you're doing a full squad optimized setup. But if you're just getting started and you just want to test the waters, this is a really good amp in general, and it's pretty damn good for solo play. So absolutely go ahead and pick this one. Now let's go ahead and move on to focus. When it comes to solo eidolon hunting, or at least hunting without a pre-made coordinated team, the focus school that you pretty much have to run is Unaria, or Unario, or Unaro, however you want to pronounce that. So the one that's important here is the Unaro Wisp, because basically what this does, hold on, yes, so what this does is that whenever you Void Blast, which is your E key, your melee weapon attack, while in operator form by the way, then you will summon a Wisp, and when picked up you will deal double damage. You can't really compete with that. Now, if running this in a fully optimized squad, then one person will still run this, but the others will run Mandori. So it can't hurt to go ahead and max out this Hyacinth's focus. That's basically all there is to it when it comes to eidolon hunting, unless you're getting into the very specifics of the 3x4 comp, but let's not worry about that right now. Now, in terms of actually killing the Eidolon or destroying the limbs once the shield has been removed, you have 2 options. One of them I will cover in a moment, and it is extremely easy. Otherwise, you have the extremely difficult option over here, and it's, you know, it's for a tiny fraction of efficiency, which really matters when you're trying to do a 3x5. But if you're just playing it casually, like a 3x3, which means that you kill all 3 Eidolons 3 times in one night, you don't need this. But this is my build, and the reason why we're using primary dexterity is because basically you will be flying around with a whip or a melee weapon with a lot of range with your slide attack and just killing the Wumba list that way, so you'll get it charged up through that. So it's a bit more guaranteed than something like Merciless, for example. Then it's just a lot of critical chance, and very importantly, we are running radiation, because that's what the Eidolon is weak to. So that actually gives you quite a big boost. You can see here with mods gives you the most, and just for the fun of it, with this build, it's yuck. It's this is the optimal ribbon, which is kind of disgusting. I would want damage just because it's universally better. Whatever. So that's that. That's just the stats for you. That's not my recommendation. That's just what the website tells you. All right. Now let's talk about the really easy solution. By the way, this is for the Rubico Prime, and it's a free format build with 25,000 cost in terms of window. So not the worst, but it's a bit on the expensive side. Yes. The Necromech is a blessing for the casual, or at least not super try-hard player. This is my half-baked build, and let me tell you that's plenty good enough. Rates is pretty important, and Necromech repair is pretty important. The rest is just candy. Now, the weapon is the important part, this one here. And this is how I build it. This is way more than enough damage. You activate this and you hit any of the limbs, you're gonna one-shot it. And the Eidolon itself goes down in 3 shots, and this thing here has a very impressive fire rate considering that. So it shouldn't take you more than a second to kill the Eidolon itself. So that's pretty much all there is to that in terms of damage. This is a really easy solution once you have the Necromech. I would definitely recommend this. It's really good for a lot of different things, and specifically good for this purpose as well. Now I have to get negative. I don't like to blame people, and I don't like to come down on people this harshly, but this seriously frustrates me. And it was the same thing with the Railjack until it was reworked, where like almost a year after it was introduced into the game, people would still use the side turrets, causing the entire mission to be nearly impossible to finish. When you make something many times more difficult than it has to be simply by existing, you know. And, you know, I'm not after you guys because you're watching this video, but in general, I do report people who do this shit. I start this mission, and first up, they grab 1 million lures, which you only need 2. And the problem is that you need to charge them. And so if the ones which are not going to be charged are absorbing the charges that the ones which needs to be charged needed, then it's going to take longer. And then on top of that, they pop the Eidolon limbs before we had a charged lure, and then they go ahead and kill the Womballists completely before the lures could absorb them. And at this point, you're so annoying, and I cannot stand people who do this. So seriously, before you just go ahead and join a raid-like game mode, please, for God's sake, go ahead and do a little bit of research. Now let's actually go ahead and deliver you that research. Alright, this is what you need to do. First up, you need to go ahead and kill one of the lures which can be found around the plains of Eidolon. Then you must capture it. You need 2 of them for the first one, 3 for the second, and 4 for the third. Then what you need to do is that the small sentient enemies around the Eidolon, they're called Womballists, need to kill them and then bring the lure close to them. Then they will be absorbed into the lure itself. Then, once you have at least 1 charged lure, then you can start taking out the limbs of the Eidolon. First, you need to blast off the shield with your amp, and then you'll use your Necromech to kill the limbs. You'll do this 1 for 1, and then once you killed all of the limbs, then the Eidolon itself will be vulnerable. Make sure that you don't kill it until you have the required charged amount of lures. The lures will turn blue when they're fully charged. Again, 2 for the first one, 3 for the second, and 4 for the third. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So get out there and see if it's something for you. Finally, we need to talk about the viability of actually doing Eidolon hunting. Alright, and we talk about the Trilon specifically, so killing all 3 in a row. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at this spreadsheet I've made here. So first up, we have the different drops, which is all Arcanes, by the way. We have the drop rate here, and this is the price on Warframe.market. This is the average value this gives on each run, and this is then all compiled at the end to give you the expected profit on average. So I'm just going to scroll through this slowly, let you guys go ahead and take a look at it. You can pause if you need to, but this information is obviously available in the official drop rate table of Warframe. And the average value you get for doing a full run of all 3 is 21.5 platinum. Not that great. So one night on the plains of Eidolon is about an hour. So this entire thing is essentially hourly. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that's going to look like. So first up, we have just selling the Arcanes and profiting from that. If you can kill all 3 once, then you'll make 21.5 and so on and so forth. Okay, of course. Now I will say that 3x3 is pretty achievable once you get a couple of rounds under your belt, and assuming that your build is actually, you know, complete and not half-assed, then you should be able to very easily hit this number. This one is difficult. It definitely takes a lot of practice. I'll say about 100 hours, and this one is nearly impossible to reach. Even the best of the best who has thousands of hours in this specific discipline in Warframe sometimes fail this just because basically if anything goes wrong at all, you're not gonna make it. Now there is also the sentient cores which drops, and the best way of spending this is through Magus Norris, which costs 21,000 210,000 standing to buy as a max rank. And obviously you can only trade in so much standing every day, but of course you can just bank this up and then cash in on it over time. The price of it is 60 platinum, and the average core value for killing a Eidolon is somewhere close to 10,000, with the first one being slightly below, the second one being just about it, and the third one being giving slightly more. So on average it's about 10, which means that you know, we have to multiply by 3 because we're killing 3 of them. And then the average amount of profit you're gonna get from a Eidolon in terms of the sentient cores it drops, if you pick up all of them, is about 8.5 is what I meant to say. So not a lot, but a decent amount. So let's go ahead and compare it again. So this is the same table, but this time we have cores as well. So while this looks very tempting, let me tell you, this is nearly impossible. Only the best of the best can reach this sometimes. If you have a dedicated squad and you all know exactly what you're doing and you don't mind spending some energy discs, this is very achievable on a consistent level. That doesn't mean that it's easy, however. Then let's talk focus, because so far these numbers are not terribly impressive, considering just I think this is the discipline in Warframe that requires the greatest amount of investment in order to get a proper setup, so the reward would have to be a bit better than this. Now focus, however, so if you do a full capture of all 3 of them, then you will receive 3 radiant shards, which is worth 40,000 focus each, and you will receive 2 radiant shards, which is worth 20,000. Now I'll have to mention that the focus that you get from converting these are not counted towards your focus cap of the day, so you can essentially earn a infinite, well, not infinite, but you know, as many as you can collect. That's how much you can gain in a day. There is no limit to it. So let's go ahead and take a look at that once again. Now most of you is probably going to be here. So from an hour's work, you're going to walk away with, on average, 90 platinum, which is not terribly great, but it's not awful either. And then you will walk away with 500,000 focus, which is nothing to scoff at. And if you get really good at it, you can get a bit more of a respectable rate. Now, at the end of the day, I will say that if you need focus, it's decent, but for the most part, Eidolon hunting in terms of being super efficient and beating the market is not really your go-to. However, I will say that 120 is a very respectable amount still, and the thing about Eidolon hunting is that it really comes down to whether or not you have fun with it. So if you don't have fun with it, then it's not worth forcing it, but if you are having fun with it, then, you know, at least you're not just doing it for what's essentially nothing. So I think that if you do enjoy it, then you should. So the capital price of doing it is quite low because of that. That's pretty much all there is to Eidolon hunting. However, in terms of an introduction, if you want the specifics of like the high level hunting strategies, you're not gonna get it here, but it is there's 1,000 guides out there for that. But I do recommend that you try it solo with this setup first, and if it's something that you like, then yes, go ahead and push it a little bit further, get the gear, have some fun with it. It's a nice break from the more linear grind, such as endless survivals or, you know, other stuff like that, bounties, so on and so forth. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one.